Hello guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to GizzyFix. In keeping with the current mini console reviews that I'm doing and absolutely loving, to be honest, because basically it gives me a chance to play them. Being a parent, working, it's just hard to find the time, so it's great to have an excuse to do it, and I've had a lot of fun doing this one. Nothing but positive things to say, really. Just to summarise it, it was released in October 19, and it really is, you have to excuse my box, it's seen better days. I move a lot. And yes, I am wearing a jacket because I'm a little bit under the weather. And you can probably hear it. Sorry. The key things I really want to get across with the Sega Mega Drive Mini is this is Sega's real first foray into mini consoles. Well, kind of, but not really. They have been doing it in sort of the 2010s, where they licensed a lot of the things out to a company called At Games. Now, nothing against At Games. They're a business, they got to make money, blah, blah, blah. But quality was not great. Sega just had a licensing deal with them, so they could basically just use the brand. But Sega really had very little to do with anything on the hardware side, software. It was essentially just That Games just paid them for the money. Sega was probably on stony ground at the time, so a few extra quid coming in every month probably didn't hurt. And I get that, that's fine. But I think they're doing a lot better now. Now, At Games wasn't really critically reviewed very well because the emulation was quite poor quality. They were usually quite cheap products.
Yeah. You ain't kidding, mate. Just look at this.
Look on the mascot, my boy.
They were very sort of loose approximations of old sort of Sega hardware. So it was just get something out, you know, plug and play, plug it in the TV. It was usually, sometimes it wouldn't even be HDMI, it would just be RCA cables, very basic, just get it out, that'll do. You know, that's what it seemed like, that'll do. Just get it out, that'll do. Probably didn't do Sega's brand much good. The other interesting thing about this was this came out in 2019. Nintendo, in the mid sort of 20-teens, they were really pushing strong on the classic consoles. They really kind of blazed the trail with the NES Classic Mini. You've already seen my thoughts on the SNES Classic Mini on the last video. And this one came out in 2019. Now before that, Sony had a stab, which is quite typical of Sony to see changing market trends and be like, oh, we'll have some of that. And then just quickly phone something in, and with very questionable sort of quality at times, you know, they don't really think through. They just get their foot in the door and get a bit of that market share. So it was really nice when Sega actually came out 9 years later and be like, hey, we've seen Nintendo do it. Hey, we've seen Sony do it, the PlayStation. We'll talk about that one day, quite soon. We can do this as well. So why don't we actually take care of the hardware? We know our hardware. We know what bought us 40% of the market share in the 90s against one of the most powerful gaming companies during the bit wars, the 16-bit wars, no less. 16-bit. But like, we can do it as well. They just pinged it. If you're a golfer, I'm not a golfer, but I can imagine if you ping that ball just right, it goes far. And this went far. It's a great looking console. A lot of effort's gone into it. And another big thing with this is they leased out the Emulation to M2, which are basically emulation aficionados. They really understand how to translate very dated CPU cores, very older software architecture, and being able to get it to run on new hardware. And that's a tremendously difficult thing to do. It's as easy as simulation. It's not. The languages that these things are made in, the CPU architecture. In this, I'm going to have a guess, it was probably a Motorola 68000. It's always a 68000. It seems to be that Motorola CPU was just the workhorse for every console at the time. It was the brain of every console. Every video I've watched on YouTube, they always bring up the 68000. But that's really dated hardware. Now those CPU cores, to get that translated and be understood and effectively used on newer hardware, like this is a Linux-based operating system, it's on flash hardware, a system on a chip, you know, it's quite new hardware. So they've got to translate that. That's not easy. Whether or not it's just 16-bit graphics, there's kind of neither here nor there. So really, M2 done a fantastic job with the emulation on this. There's some awesome games on here that we'll have a look at. In a second, we'll have a look at the hardware itself, and then we'll boot it up and actually see what the games are. And I love the UI of this. I think it's fantastic. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to cover now. What we'll do is we'll open it up, we'll have a look at the hardware, we'll have a look at the controllers and what you get inside the box. Again, sorry, my box is a bit tatty. And yeah, I love the look of this hardware, but yeah, without further ado, let's have a look. Open this up. Cool. Awesome, so here we are. So here's the box. Again, sorry it's a little bit tatty, and I'm sorry for the reflections. It's a little bit difficult. I've got some new lighting, so I'm sort of tinkering around with it, but hopefully you can see it all right. So you get the 2 controllers. They're not the 6-button controllers, which is a shame. They kind of rectified this with the Mega Drive Mini 2, which we'll talk about in coming videos. Did they do this on purpose? Probably yes. They could argue that maybe giving the original 3-button controller was the first one that you used, much like on the PS Classic, to give you the original controller, because maybe it's that. But also, maybe if they were going to release another revision, they can then give that functionality back in. They'll be like, oh, it's got a DualShock and it's new functionality as a USP, so they can sell. I'll let Sega get away with that. I'm not keen on companies holding back on functionality so they can just sell it at a later date. Just give people what they want. You know what they want. But I'm going to let Sega slide on this because this console really is spot on in terms of a mini console. And look at that, it's got arcade graphics and digital stereo sound. 40 classic games. You get 2 bonus titles on this as well, and we'll talk about those in a second. On the box, you can't ask for any more. I think it's fantastic. So again, sorry for the reflection if you are getting a little bit, but we'll look at these games when we actually hook it up and sort of, take a good long look at the games as well. They didn't hold back. They really didn't. They got some fantastic games on here from Sega's library, from third-party publishers as well. So a big one will probably be like Capcom when you got Ghouls at Ghosts. I believe it was Capcom. That's the top of my head. So if I'm wrong, apologies. Konami, you got Castlevania. You've got some Sega classics like Streets of Rage 2. Again, they didn't put Streets of Rage on. They put Streets of Rage 2, the better version. And I think that's probably the best. I'm not massively keen on Streets of Rage 3. For some reason, I'm not massively nostalgic. I don't think it sold that well. It's probably towards the end of the Mega Drive's life cycle. So Streets of Rage 2 for me is epitome. You got Earthworm Jim, Fantasy Star, Sonic, and you got Sonic 2. Brilliant. They put both on there, not just one or the other. They put both. You got Golden Axe. That one for me is perfect. Like, don't worry about Golden Axe 2 because I played that more. Street Fighter 2, Space Harrier, Strider, Probotector, which is basically the sort of the PAL version of Contra. Altered Beast, rubbish game, but I love it. So they knew that. Castle of Illusion, fantastic. There are maybe some games on here that I played that I possibly would have liked. Road Rash 2, again, amazing. Didn't put Road Rash 1 on. Road Rash 2 is the better one. They put that on. They really didn't scrimp on the titles that they were packaging in. And then you get Darius and Tetris as your bonus titles. They're great games. We have a quick look at those in a bit. Columns, it's an awful puzzle game. I hate it, but for some reason I love it. I can't really explain my relationship with Columns that well. Point is, they did it right. They put the games on there they knew people wanted. Got a couple of ones that are sort of maybe not at the forefront of people's, memories, like maybe Eternal Champions. But again, that could be someone's Altered Beast. For me, Altered Beast is my Altered Beast. That's a terrible analogy. I don't know if anyone's even going to understand that. Hopefully you can understand what I mean. I think Sega really hit this spot on. And with the Mega Drive Mini 2, they did even better. But that's a video for another time. So let's have a look at the console itself. Now, if you're going to do a mini console, this is how you do it. It is essentially, again, a perfect replica. Little details. The 16-bit still there. The reset button works. The on and off button is exactly the same as it was. Okay, the volume knob doesn't actually do anything, but they still put the little phones. Everything is essentially as it was on the original console, right the way down to the expansion port. It's a shame that it does. Well, look at that. There you go. It does come off. They thought of everything. They really thought of everything with this. That's why this is so fondly regarded. And it really does. Essentially, all the vents, everything else. Did they need to include these? The expansion slot for when you slid it onto a Mega CD? Of course they didn't, but they did anyways. And that's why this really shows a lot of care and a lot of attention to the people who bought Sega consoles, who love Sega consoles, who had great gaming experiences. This is why this is regarded as one of the best mini consoles. Well, at least for me it is anyways. Just spot on. Like, Sega, bravo. Bravo. And now moving on to the controller. Again, perfect replica. Absolutely pixel perfect replica of an original I called it a Genesis then, been watching too much GameSack. Mega Drive controller, and really responsive, obviously because it's new hardware, so it's been revised on the inside, because some of these buttons get a bit spongy after a while when you're sort of smashing it on Streets of Rage 2. But you can see that it's nice, and it's still comfy. It's still a comfy controller to hold. And could they have done anything with the USB? But really, it's like with the PlayStation Classic Mini, they could have done. I'm not that fussed. And again, being able to press and hold start to get you back to the home menu, again, thumbs up. You get 2 controllers in the box, so there's no point getting them out. So you can see one, see the other. Nothing really more to say, but just spot on the hardware front. I don't think they could have realistically done it any better. But let's hook it up now. We'll start having a look at the games and the UI, which is fantastic.
Well, hello guys. So here we are. This is the first screen you're going to see when you boot up your Sega Mega Drive Mini. And I've got to say, it's just a wonderful UI. I absolutely love the look of this, and it really invokes those feelings of nostalgia, which is the big part of why you buy something like this. And let's just get straight into the games just quickly, because as you can see, there's some heavy hitters here again, and this is definitely pitched by Sega as to really hit Nintendo kind of where it hurts. So we're like, okay, you think you can do mini consoles? Just wait and see what we come up with. And it's impressive. It definitely is. And even the simple things, even with the UI, if you hit B, you can change the layout. So you can see the front covers, and almost this emulates, for want of a better term, going from here and looking through, you think these are exactly how they'd be on your shelf, when you were picking a game, you got home from school and you think, oh, what do I fancy playing? And you think, oh, actually, I wouldn't mind actually doing some Road Rash 2. I want to actually, punch some people off their bikes. And you get it. That's it. You're in. But before long, you fire it up and you've got pixel perfect emulation. And just having a look here, this ain't me playing, by the way, so if I do really well, then I'll take credit for it. If I don't, then I'll be like, this is just a demo. The good thing about this one as well, and it was a big bugbear of mine on the SNES Classic Mini, was the fact that I can just hold the start button, keep holding it, and it brings up the system menu. Now, I don't know why that Nintendo couldn't figure that out on the SNES Classic Mini or the NES Classic Mini. But Sega, almost like they realised the pitfall of Nintendo, like they didn't include that. You can still do it. You can still hit the reset button on the Mega Drive Mini itself, get up and have that. If that makes you nostalgic, that's cool, that's fine. But having that kind of convenience with humans, we love the path of least resistance. So, it's great. And then from here, you can just hit your save button and save it, and then yes, and good, and you're in, done. And that's brilliant. You can reset the game, and this is the key one. I want to go back to the main menu, and I can. And the only thing we haven't looked at quickly is the settings. We'll have a quick look. It's not really a huge amount here. Now, again, a big bugbear of mine, there's only 3 wallpapers. Why? Why not anymore? Like, I'm sure on the Super Game Boy you had more. I rabbited on about this for ages, so I'm not going to talk about that one anymore. Screen settings, we can have a look. It's a little bit basic. I don't think there's any scan lines in this one or anything like that. Stretched or have it as native aspect ratio is 4:3. The key point I want to get across is as you're scrolling through, you think, oh wow, yeah, Ghouls and Ghosts. You get it, you hit B, and now I can see the front cover. This kind of emulates that you've taken it off the shelf and you're looking at it. Thinking about it, they could have gone one step further. They could have literally just had a way for you to get the case and flick it back and forth. Maybe so you look at the back, because that's the first thing I'd do. If I pull a case out, you look at the back, see the screenshots and the sort of caption or whatever, your King Arthur who's going to save his damsel in distress, XYZ, face loads of demons and things. You don't really get that anymore. If you're lucky, maybe you do on games. So you certainly don't get a manual. Don't get me started on that one. So let's have a look. I'm actually going to play a little bit now of a classic game. I actually think this one's a little bit harder, but it doesn't have the slowdown. Some parts of the one on the SNES Classic Mini, oh, okay, that's not great. You'd get some slowdown though. I don't know why. I think visually it still looked really nice. Oh, look at that. I've got the yellow already. I've got gold. That's brilliant. Can I survive now? I'm not going to be able to talk and do this at the same time, especially with a game like this. But I'm not doing too bad. I'm still alive. This will be it. This will be game over. Yeah, see? Told you. No, I'm still going. I'm just making a run for it. Okay, I'm enjoying the game too much, but I see how it is. Did you see that? That skill, that is. You can't teach that. That's instinct. But you can see the emulation. That's the key part I want to get across, and it's just spot on. For me, it's the emulation is that key part to get you back in time, and that's what these games consoles do. This one really came out the gate strong. Like Sega really focused on this one and produced it themselves. and thought, okay, we can do this really well as well. And they did. So we go back to the main menu. You've got some really heavy hitters. Thunder Force 3. I think Thunder Force 4 was one of the better ones, but again, fantastic inclusion. And these are your two extras. You've got Darius and Tetris. Let's have a quick look at Tetris. See, it's Tetris, you know. There's not really a huge amount more I could probably say. The key part is I don't think Tetris was ever on a Sega console. Just because when you think of Tetris, I straight away think of the Game Boy. So it's quite interesting that they've included it. Yeah, I think that's quite cool. Let's have a quick look at Darius now. Seems pretty fair so far. It's not going for, you know, some shoot 'em ups, they really go quite hard for you straight away. Right, I'm actually enjoying this game way too much. I'm not okay, but you can see there that that's quite a cool game. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I don't think there's anything more I need to say. I think I covered all the bits and spoke about what I wanted to. It's a bit of a long video. Tried to keep this one short, but I think I failed miserably. Again, still learning on these videos, so if you like the video, please let us know. If you dislike it as well, please let us know. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're doing well. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much. And maybe I'll see you in the next one. Take care.